So you want to make people lose their minds like this?
There's no way! How did he do that?
Then this guide is for you. What's up, Jesters? I'm Eagz, a multi-season Challenger player from the Oceanic Super server, and this is what I do on Shaco to stomp everyone I've ever jungled against, maybe apart from Fire. My count at the moment, it's not too impressive to be honest, but most of the games are in like Master plus Elo, so it's not too bad. And I did recently post a video going like 20-1 against a Challenger jungler, so it's all still there. Now in this guide, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about AD versus AP, summoner spells, runes, skill order, builds, clears, level 3 plays, and mechanics and combos. So I'm kind of like assuming that you have basic knowledge of how to play Shaco and the AD and AP playstyles as I go through this, but if you don't and you want all the detail in the world, then you can check out the written version of this guide, which is on Tacter and is linked down below. And a lot of hard work went into that, so if you do have the kindness to put a like on that, that would mean a lot. So AD versus AP. Well, I go AD, attack damage Shaco, in pretty much every game unless our team is already full AD. So if I have only AD in every other role, going AP is just a must for me. I also think that being able to play like AD and AP Shaco, like both forms, not only is it good for enhancing your team's like damage mix, but it's also like a flex, like being able to play both. Now, as for summoner spells, Shaco for me is about snowballing. Ignite in the early game is going to help you do that more than anything else, and I've never felt like I needed anything else, other than Smite of course, than Ignite when I'm playing Shaq. Now for runes, let's start with AD Shaco. So Halo Blades, this is just insta burst damage, right? 3 backstabs with Halo Blades, GG easy. Sudden impact, burst damage. Zombie ward, this feels so nice, it looks weird, but there's a reason for this. It feels so nice with Umbral Glaive. That's what I go every game, and I'm going to get into the builds very soon, and this just helps me snowball. Relentless Hunter, this for me is just a must, especially because they nerfed Shaco's movement speed by like 5 not so long ago. It just feels like without it, some games, if I take Treasure Hunter for instance, some games I feel like I want the movement speed, like I'm missing out on that. So Relentless for me is just every single game. Alacrity, I don't like building attack speed items, like I've always hated it, and I think there's signs of like a beta Shaco play, I'm going to be honest. So I run Alacrity so I don't have to buy these items, right? I have enough attack speed from the runes to be able to clear camps and duel without Halo Blades. Coup de grace, this just helps me secure early kills. You can go, and I sometimes go like cut down in games where the whole enemy team is like tanky, like every single one of them, but you also have to be a little bit careful if you're going something like Stride Breaker, because you will have HP from that item and even Edge of Night as well. So keep that in mind if you're going to go cut down. So for shards, I always take 1 attack speed and adaptive, and this is for both AD and AP Shaco, by the way. And then I basically take armor against attack damage junglers, magic resist against AP junglers, and then health if I don't really care about the enemy jungler's damage. It might be like a tank like Rammus or Zac or something. Now, what about my AP runes? So Dark Harvest, easy to proc, and nothing else really makes much sense to me except maybe First Strike, but I don't really like the rest of the inspiration tree that much, so I always go Dark Harvest. Chief Shot, as AP Shaco, like I find myself using shivs or my E's on champs who are CC'd or feared from boxes or even my ultimate. Sudden Impact is actually still fine, I think, especially if you're the only AP on your team, and it might actually be kind of deadly with Sork Shoes. Eyeball Collection, I find this the easiest to stack from this row, and then Treasure Hunter, I know lots of people go Ultimate Hunter, but I prefer Treasure Hunter because I want to get to my item spikes ASAP, and having my R on a lower cooldown from Ultimate Hunter, like I don't think it means as much, and later in a game you're going to have so much haste anyway, it's kind of just like overkill. Transcendence, because we're all about that haste, brah. Gathering Storm, this lets me become final boss Shaco. Now for skill orders, for both AD and AP Shaco, always start W, and then I go Q second, and then E third, pretty much in every single game. Even if I think I might full clear, and I'll talk about this later as well, I never put 2 points in my box at level 3 because I don't think it clears your speed up to the point where it actually really matters. Like you're still getting to the Scuttle Crab on time, and you never know who might be around the corner. Like you can get evaded and stuff, or you might want to gank after your wolf camp as well. Now at level 4, I don't skill anything. I think this is really important until I'm hitting either a camp or a champ. So if I'm hitting a camp, I skill W. If I'm hitting a champ, I skill E, looking for a kill or something. And that's the same at level 5 as well. I don't skill anything until I know what I'm hitting first. After that, I skill R at level 6, then at 11 and 16, and all of that is the same for AD and AP Shaco. Now, if I'm playing AD Shaco, if I don't have 3 points in W at level 6, at level 7 and then level 8, if I have to, that's what I do. If I already have 3 points in W by level 5 though, then I max out my E, and once E is maxed, I max Q, and then the final 2 points in W. Now for AP Shaco, by the time I hit level 6, I'm maxing my W like regardless of what I did at level 4 and 5, and then I max E, and then I max Q. Now for builds, let's start with AD Shaco. Now this is what I run and all the Korean Shacos run. Red Smite, damage. Umbral Glaive and Boots of Swiftness. These are always my first two items, like no matter what, I'm always building these. Some games I buy like a Dirk first, if I'm on like 1100 gold and then Swifties. Some games I buy Boots and 2 longswords if I'm on 1000 gold and then finish Glaive, because I already have movement speed from Boots. But in every game, regardless of how I get there, it's always going to be Glaive and Swifties 100%. Now for my mythic, I think there are 3 options. Ghostblade, I take this if the enemy team is like super squishy with little mobility, but if I know like they're eventually going to build armor because they're like bruisers or whatever, or maybe it's like a Zonya's mage in mid lane, I'm never going to go Ghostblade because it just feels like your damage is cucked. Now Eclipse, I take this if the enemy team is building that little bit of armor I just talked about and are mostly melee champions. This will make sense in a second. Stridebreaker is the other option. I take this if the enemy team is full of range and has mobility. So stuff like Graves, Kindred, GP, obviously lots of mid laners who are range, and AD carries of course. This active is really useful against them to slow them, and it's nice for clearing camps, and you still get a bunch of AD from the item. Like trust me, you won't actually feel much difference between Stridebreaker's damage and something from like Eclipse and Ghostblade. Now as my 4th item in every single game, regardless of what mythic I have, I build Prowler's Claw. You will know why when you test it out. The active is just too much of a Craigasm. Now if I have Ghostblade or Eclipse as my mythic, I can't believe I typed that and just read that out. If I have Ghostblade or Eclipse as my mythic, so Lethality mythic, these are the items I might choose to go as my 5th and 6th items. Collector, so if everyone on the enemy team is really squishy, like I'm talking 0 armor, this is unreal. Edge of Night is another option, and I take this if the enemy team has lots of scary skill shots, and I feel like I'm not safe without it, right? Serpent's Fang, another option. I take this if the enemy team has lots of shields. Yasuo, Yone, Janna, Lulu, etc. Lord Dominic's Regards is another option if they have a lot of armor. Guardian's Angel. If I feel like I'm just getting one shot, even if I play fights well, I just seem to die regardless, I will get a GA. More of Malmortius. If the enemy team has lots of AP, I will take this, especially stuff like Karthus that's pretty much a must against. Axiomark, I take this if Shaco is talking to me a bit too much. But what about if I go Stridebreaker, right? What are the options here? Well, for your 5th and 6th items, remember, Prowler's Claw 4th item, and then 5th and 6th, well, these are the options. Dead Man's Blade. I honestly think this could be core because it just feels unreal. The movement speed, the damage and slow, and the auto attack, it's pretty pog. Guardian's Angel, a little bit different though, the reasoning here with Stridebreaker, because you're already tankier from the HP. So I take GA if the enemy team's big damage is coming from AD champs. More Malmortius, same as before. If the enemy team has lots of AP, I will take more. Blade of the Rune King, if the enemy team has lots of HP and tanks and bruises, Bork is good. And then Spirit Shojin here I think is the last option. And I love going this item because it feels really nice because of the haste, but I only think it's good if you're snowballing because you don't really need it late game. Now what do I build on AP Shaco? So Red Smite, same as AD for damage. Leandry's Anguish, AP, haste and burn damage, too good. Demonic Embrace, I love Demonic with Leandry's because of the amplified burn damage you get, and the HP, I just feel invincible with it, gonna be honest. For boots, I choose between these 2 Lucidity boots. I take these if I'm not the sole AP. So even if I have something like a Lux support, that still counts as AP for me, so I will take Lucids in those comps. But if I'm the only AP champion on my team, like pure AP, I will take Sorcerer Shoes. For my 4th, 5th, and 6th items, there are a lot of choices here. So Darkseal and then Magi's. I always buy Darkseals in the early game if I have like a leftover 350 gold, and if I'm fed, I will always upgrade to Magi's after Demonic, so 4th item. Imperial Mandate, this sounds weird, but actually works really well, but I only buy this if I have another AP on my team, otherwise your team will just miss out on magic damage. Cosmic Drive, if I don't need something more defensive like a Zonya's or Banshees or even like Heal Cut like with Morello's, I will get the Drive. Zonya's Hourglass, I take this when the enemy team has lots of dive and attack damage. It's also just a great all-around item for AP Shaco because you can be so much more aggressive in terms of baiting cooldowns and even engaging in team fights, and you will 1v9 fights just because of this item. Banshee's Veil, pretty much the AP Edge of Night. I'll take this if the enemy team has lots of skill shots. Morello's, if they have lots of healing. Rabadon's Death Cap. If I'm the sole AP, I will get this unless I already have a Magi's. Now Shaco clears you By the way, I do the same clears if I'm playing AD or AP Shaco. So I do 2 clears and that's it. Now before each clear, I run towards the Red River and put a box down ASAP to discourage those dirty dogs on the enemy team from invading. If I know they will invade no matter what, or late invade because they have a very strong level 1 comp, then I will pretty much always start at my wolf camp. It's a lot safer. If I see them trigger that box I put down, then I will always, no matter what, go to wolves. I don't even bother like contesting or seeing what they're going to do at my raptors or red. I just go to wolves straight away. Now once I know I'm chilling, if I'm starting at my red buff quadrant, I will always put 2 boxes down at red to the side of the buff, starting at 0 0-0-50. And then the next box over Crux. So 2 on red, 1 at Crux. When you clear every camp that isn't Gromp, it's really important to understand that you can only auto attack once before the camp will turn. So you should be backstabbing and then waiting for the camp to start turning and then run behind it or behind the center of the monster, and then you can backstab again. Repeat this for every single camp. It will speed up your clear tenfold. Another quick tip for Krugs: when I have the big Krug to like 100 HP or less and the medium Krug to 40 HP or less, or 40% HP or less, I box towards the exit to Raptors and the box will finish off all of the Krugs. Then I queue to Raptors, backstabbing the big one as much as possible, and I'm on my way. I finish these 3 camps no later than 2:20 in every single game, and yes, I never get a leash. I also don't like starting Raptors and finishing at Krugs because my Raptors are hard to cover at 4 minutes if nothing happens, right? And I don't know if their bot or top lane is 100% going to be killable like after I finish at Krugs, and I can still kill them after Raptors anyway. Now, if I'm starting on my blue buff quadrant, I always start at walls, and I know I'm putting walls on a 4-minute respawn like I would do Raptors, but I'm fine with this because the wolf camp is closer to my nexus than Raptors, right? So I have more time to protect them and actually catch the enemy jungler if they are doing them. So 2 boxes either side of the big wolf, then 1 outside Gromp's aggro range, making sure to backstab the big wolf as much as possible. Now, when my next box comes off cooldown, this is really important, I always place this in the blue buff brush, and as I hit level 2, I then queue to Gromp and smite it into the box I placed before. Gromp is kind of built diff because Gromp will actually allow you to backstab it twice before it turns around, but the first backstab you put on it has to be like as it's kind of refreshed its cycle in a way. Hopefully that makes sense and you can see it visually there, and it's the only camp that does that, so it's super important to exploit the Toad for being lazy. Then when I queue to blue, knowing Gromp will die to the burn from my auto attack right, I backstab the buff and put a box behind it. This will push it into the box I put down in the brush after I finish walls, and then I just backstab, 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 happy days. Level 3 plays. Now, playing Shaco is one thing, but playing jungle is another, so I've made this chapter to walk you through my thought process when I hit level 3. There are 3 plays I'm thinking of making. Invading second quadrant. When I know where the enemy jungler has started, like 100% they've started here or here, my first thought is to sprint at their second quadrant. And I don't really care about the champion they are playing because my plan is to hit them while they're clearing the camp, in other words, losing HP and using cooldowns. So if I start red buff, I will try to hit the enemy jungler on their wolf camp if they started at their red buff, or their red buff if they started on their blue buff. So with the wolf camp invade, what I do is run to this brush and wait until 2:45. I will either see the enemy jungler moving towards walls from Raptors, or I won't. If I do, then I box the blast cone and go over. If I don't, then I do exactly the same thing, making sure to trinket though on the other side towards the Raptors. That way I know if they're coming or not. Now with the red buff invade, I will stutter step out of this brush trying to scout the enemy Raptors. This lets me know if they are actually doing Raptors already or not. If they are, then I can set up a box behind their red buff and get ready. If they are not doing Raptors, then I will run around to check their red buff, and sometimes they can be doing this because they might have gone like blue Gromp straight into red. But if red buff is still there, then what I'll do, I'll queue over this wall and walk into the Raptors brush. I don't like boxing this brush, by the way, until I'm in there, because if I box early, then the enemy jungler, if they're walking through, they'll just run off, right? I don't want to scare them out of the trap. Now, if I start at walls and do my blue buff, it's the same thing if you're invading the enemy jungler's red buff quadrant, what we just looked at. But if you're invading the blue buff quadrant, I like to walk into this brush and trinket over to see their blue and Gromp. Now, you can actually do the same invade on this quadrant by walking into the walls brush, but by the time you get there, you have to realize like you're a good 5 seconds later by starting at walls. They could be on their wolf camp already, so you would have to blast cone over almost instantly. Now, ganking is obviously another option at level 3, right? So I gank lanes when I can kill lanes. I don't want to go to a lane just to like, you know, see what's going on. I just try to envision my damage on that enemy champion. And if I can kill them before they react, like with their flashes and their abilities, that's even better. Like that is the true essence of playing Shaco and an assassin. Now, this is for both AD and AP, and it's just that I might do it a little bit less as AP Shaco because I don't have as much burst damage as I do with Halo Blades. So please take that into account. Now, if I'm not invading or ganking, then I am running to my 4th camp. This being Raptors or Wolves, depending on what side I started on, right? But like I said before, I never put 2 points in W and commit to just full clearing. You will miss out on kills and potentially get killed. Probably not, but you might do because you can't fend for yourself as much if you get invaded, which can happen. So in this game, for instance, I clear walls, and while I'm clearing them, I keep track of the nearby enemies. enemies. Lux is now really pushed up all of a sudden, and there is a fresh wave approaching the mid lane. Yummy. I think that is the art of jungling, by the way. Like, it doesn't really have anything to do with Shaco, apart from asking the question, like, do I actually have the damage to kill this enemy? That's it. If Lux was under her tower and top lane was doing nothing, I would just clear my next camp, and so on. Now, mechanics and combos. I went through so many of my montages and games, and found 19 mechanics that I use on a regular basis. Now, number one is backstabbing. Sorry for the thunder, unlucky. Clearing camps, killing enemy champions, passive is king. So this is Salty, an Emerald student of mine who was auto-attacking as soon as he was in range of the enemy champion. The improvement is running behind the enemy champion before auto-attacking. This means backstabbing. Another little mistake is unstealthing before backstabbing. I want to appear out of stealth while I'm backstabbing, because then they have no time to react to it. In this clip, I'm taking a bit more time to sniff the back of my enemy, and Shaco will be very happy with you when you do this. Always make Shaco happy. In this clip, I'm doing the same thing, shanking them from behind at all costs, not queuing. This sounds weird, but when I queue to gank a lane, it's because I have to. Sometimes, though, I won't have to. So in this example, Sam doesn't need to queue out of the brush because he can simply just walk to the left of Renekton and hold his Q when Renekton might flash away. Q jumps. I don't know how many hours like I've spent in a practice tool not just finding these, but like making sure I do them successfully before I play games. Like, it's a lot of time, right? And these are so crucial because of the angle some of these give you, especially the jumps over the top and bot walls. And you don't want to fail them because there's no worse feeling than queuing into a wall and wasting like 15 seconds or missing out on kills and stuff, right? So it's simple. Don't let it happen by practicing. Q to dodge. I don't want to get hit by skill shots, so I anticipate them so I can dodge them with my Q. Whether it's Camille E, Leona ultimate, I like to know what I need to look out for before I get into game. Then I'm mentally aware of that skill shot before it even comes at me. Q redirection. I think this is a deadly weapon, and it's basically just queuing in the direction you are not facing. So in these clips you're watching, you can see how I am quickly flicking my mouse back in a different direction to where Shaq is facing. This might hurt his back a little bit, but don't worry because you're hurting the backs of your enemies more. W blocking, how far was that joke? One of my favorites, all I'm doing in these clips is putting a box down when I know the enemy champion is going to throw their single target skill shot at me, like a Lee Q, Ari Charm, and there are heaps of others like Elise Cocoons, Gragas body slams you can do it against. There are a lot. Now, gank boxing. When I gank, I am going to box in two positions, either behind the enemy champion because I know they're going to run off, or in the middle of the fight because they are showing an intention to kill my teammate. Now, in this clip you're watching, this is me getting fancy and boxing all the way back at Aurelia's tier 2. Knowing her only escape from a dive is literally running back to her next tower. W for vision. Placing a box reveals vision of that little area. So you can put them in brushes and over terrain to see people so you can then E them. Now Sam in this clip should box the brush Maokai runs into and then he can E and save his Q. W to ambush. When the enemy champions don't know you're in the area, like in this clip, all I'm doing is just putting a box down and boo, Q and E. This is actually pretty important, like it's kind of standard, but it is important. As soon as I Q, I move my cursor onto the enemy champion and spam E. You want to be as quick as possible with this. There's a very small window you have in case they get out of range or just react to it, so you have to be able to Q and E pretty much instantaneously. E to execute. Using E when the enemy champion is low HP is something I use in like every single game. It deals more damage the lower they are, but sometimes I do use E early in a fight when I know the fight will last long enough, so close to maybe 10 seconds, to use another E. This is the same example as earlier, so Sam can just E the Renekton here because it will come back off cooldown. R to bait damage. Now when I have my ultimate, especially as AP Shaco, I love queuing into the enemy team and pressing R and they instant nuke the clone and get feared and tilt. This clip is me all the way back in season 7, doing it as AD Shaco against Incursio, who happened to hit like Challenger US recently. Pretty cool clip. R to reattach. When the clone is in Narnia, I like to push him away so he reattaches to my hip. Such a good boy. So during a fight, this can happen, right? And I think of it like bringing the clone back into the fight. Don't leave him out of it. Q and R to nuke. This is the deadliest combo there is, and all I'm doing is queuing towards my opponent, and when I'm in backstab range, I just press R and I literally smash my rig against the keyboard. R to dodge. Just like using Q to dodge abilities, this time it's with R. I think the most important part of this is again just knowing what those abilities I have to dodge actually are before the game starts. You will be aware of them and you will dodge them so easily. R to juke. All I'm doing is moving my clone as if it's me. That's it. So I'm just pressing R while moving my cursor in the direction I want the clone to go, and all I'm doing, the real Shaq, is auto-attacking the enemy like my clone usually would. R to pit jump. I love doing these jumps. The key to it is getting Shaco's little knees right up against the walls, and you can move your cursor where you want Shaco to end up, and you're over. This clip, by the way, of me going over the Drake wall was before you could actually redirect your R, kind of bog. Queuing out of R. This is a pretty rare one because not often do I have my Q off cooldown after ulting, but if I do, I know I can dodge the enemy's spells with my R, and then I can actually Q away, leave my clone behind to blow up and fear them. Bro, look at these clips. Holding Ignite. I use Ignite when I know the enemy champion will die to it, and a lot of the time I will be using Ignite with my E, like a little combo there. It's also useful to Ignite just before the enemy champion is kind of like posturing to flash away, because you will still have vision of them, so you can E them over that terrain. If you lose vision, you can't E. This clip shows Sam using Ignite just a tad too early, and I've been there, mate, don't worry. We all have. So if you want more Shaco content, guys, check out the rest of my videos on this channel, the montages, the commentaries, and if you actually want coaching, I've coached a lot of Shaco players recently. Those sessions are on Patreon, but if you want coaching one-on-one, my website is linked down below. Don't be shy, bye.